Jaguar, Aston Martin, Bentley, Lotus, AC, 5 names that built the most beautiful sports cars the world has ever seen, and one of them created a car so stunning that Enzo Ferrari himself called it the most beautiful car ever made. That car is on this list, but it is not number 1. The most beautiful British sports car ever built came from a tiny workshop in Surrey, and almost nobody has heard of it. 5 cars, 5 completely different design philosophies, and only one can be the most beautiful. Let us count them down. Number 5. The Jaguar XK Series 1, also known as the E-Type. Coventry, 1961. Malcolm Sayer, an aerodynamicist who had worked on fighter planes, designed the body using mathematical curves that no draftsman could have drawn by hand. The result was a silhouette that stopped traffic. Enzo Ferrari saw the XKE at the Geneva Motor Show and reportedly said it was the most beautiful car in the world. The long bonnet, the covered headlights, the curved haunches over the rear wheels, and the triple SU carburetors feeding a 3.8-liter straight-six engine, producing 265 horsepower. The top speed was 150 miles per hour, making it the fastest production car in the world at launch. The XKE was not just beautiful, it was a technical revolution. Independent rear suspension, disc brakes on all 4 wheels, and a monocoque chassis that was years ahead of its rivals. The car cost roughly £2,000 in Britain, less than half the price of an Aston Martin or a Ferrari with similar performance. No wonder the orders poured in. The E-Type was not just a car for the rich, it was a car for the young, the ambitious, and the fast. In the Britain of the early 60s, a generation that had grown up during wartime rationing was finally finding prosperity, and the E-Type was the symbol of that new confidence. It was the car on every teenager's bedroom wall, the poster that replaced the pinup girl. The shape was so perfect that the Museum of Modern Art in New York added an E-Type to its permanent design collection, one of only a handful of automobiles to receive that honor. The car transcended transportation. It became art. And the reason it became art was because Malcolm Sayer did not design it with a pencil, he designed it with mathematics. The curves of the E-Type body were computed from aerodynamic equations, and every line served a function, reducing drag, managing airflow, and creating a shape that was both efficient and breathtaking. Form followed function, and the function was beautiful, but the XKE had a problem. The styling evolved over the years, and by the Series 3, with its enlarged V12 engine and flared wheel arches, the purity of the original lines was lost. The Series 1, built from 1961 to 1967, remains the definitive version, the one that earned the Ferrari compliment, and the one that collectors fight over today. Production of the Series 1 is estimated at roughly 38,000 units across all variants. Today, a matching numbers Series 1 coupe sells for prices that would shock the original buyers. Number 4, the Aston Martin DB5, Newport Pagnell 1963. The DB5 needs no introduction. It is James Bond. The silver coupe with the ejector seat, the machine guns, and the revolving number plates. But the real car was even more impressive than the movie version. The DB5 was powered by a 4-liter straight-six engine producing 282 horsepower, with a top speed of 145 miles per hour. The body was hand-built in aluminium, with every panel shaped and finished by craftsmen at the Newport Pagnell factory. The grille was pure Aston Martin, wide and low, with a single horizontal bar. The wire wheels, the leather interior, the walnut dashboard, every detail spoke of quality and refinement. The DB5 was not the fastest car of its era, and it was not the cheapest. But it had a presence that no other car could match. It looked expensive, because it was expensive, costing more than £4,000 when new, roughly the price of a small house in Britain at the time. The DB5 also had a racing pedigree that the movies never mentioned. Aston Martin had won the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1959 with the DBR1, and the engineering knowledge from racing filtered directly into the road cars. The DB5 engine used twin overhead camshafts, a design derived from the racing program, and the handling was tuned on the same test roads where Aston Martin developed its competition cars. The DB5 was not just a pretty face, it was a serious driver's car, with precise steering, balanced weight distribution, and a chassis that could hold its own on a winding country road at speed. The combination of beauty and capability is what made the DB5 immortal. Production was limited to roughly 1,000 units across all body styles, including the convertible and the shooting brake. The rarity, the beauty, and the Bond connection have made the DB5 one of the most valuable British cars in the world. A Concours example sold at auction for over $6 million in recent years. But the beauty of the DB5 is not about money, it is about proportion. The long bonnet, the setback cabin, the short tail, every line is exactly where it should be, and not a single detail feels out of place. The DB5 is the definition of timeless design. 60 years later, it still looks modern. Number 3. The Lotus Elite. Cheshunt, 1957. Colin Chapman believed that performance came from lightness, not from power. The Elite was the ultimate expression of that philosophy. A tiny, beautiful coupe with a fiberglass monocoque body, weighing less than 700 kilograms. The engine was a Coventry Climax 1.2-liter four-cylinder, producing 83 horsepower. The top speed was around 100 miles per hour, which was extraordinary for such a small engine, because the car weighed almost nothing. But the Elite was not about speed. It was about shape. The body was designed by Peter Kerwin-Taylor, and it was a masterpiece of simplicity. Low, curvaceous, with a glass rear hatch and pop-up headlights that disappeared into the front wings. The Elite looked like a concept car that had escaped onto the road. The interior was minimalist, with bucket seats, a wooden steering wheel, and barely enough room for 2 adults. The fiberglass body was both the Elite's greatest innovation and its greatest weakness. The material saved weight, but it was not strong enough to support the suspension mounting points, and many Elites developed stress cracks in the bodywork. Production lasted from 1957 to 1963, with roughly 1,000 units built. Today, the Elite is one of the most underrated British sports cars. A car that was decades ahead of its time in engineering, and one of the most beautiful shapes ever to wear a British number plate. A question for you: Elite or E-Type? Write just the name in the comments. Both are beautiful. Only one can be your favorite. Number 2. The AC Cobra. Thames Ditton, 1962. The story of the Cobra is one of the most famous in automotive history. AC Cars, a small British manufacturer, built a lightweight roadster with a pretty but underpowered engine. Carroll Shelby, a Texas racing driver, had the idea of dropping a Ford V8 into the lightweight British chassis. The result was explosive. The Cobra was powered by a 4.7-liter Ford V8, producing 360 horsepower in the early versions, with later models getting a massive 7-liter engine. The top speed was around 165 miles per hour. The Cobra was brutally fast, but it was also stunningly beautiful. The wide, flared arches, the side exhaust pipes, the roll bar, the aggressive stance. The Cobra looked like it was ready to race, and it was. The car dominated American road racing, and it became a legend on both sides of the Atlantic. The body was hand-built in aluminium at the AC factory in Thames Ditton, with the engines shipped from Ford in the United States. The combination of British craftsmanship and American muscle created something that neither country could have built alone. Production of the original Cobras is estimated at roughly 1,000 units, split between the small block and big block versions. The Cobra also had a darker reputation. The 7-liter version, known as the 427, was famously described as too much engine for not enough car. The acceleration was savage, the handling was twitchy, and the brakes struggled to cope with the power. Stories of Cobra owners losing control became part of the legend, and insurance companies in both Britain and America refused to cover the car, or charged premiums that rivaled the purchase price. The danger was part of the appeal. The Cobra was a car that demanded respect, and the drivers who mastered it earned a reputation that followed them for life. Today, the Cobra is one of the most replicated cars in history, with kit car manufacturers around the world producing copies. But the originals, the hand-built Thames Ditton cars with the Shelby American engines, are irreplaceable works of art. 165 miles per hour, from a car that weighed just over 1,000 kilograms. The numbers still stagger. Number 1. The Jaguar XK 140, Coventry, 1954. Wait, not the E-Type? No. The XK 140 is the most beautiful British sports car ever made, and here is why. The E-Type is stunning, but it is a product of the 1960s, of aerodynamics and wind tunnels. The XK 140 belongs to an earlier tradition, of hand-shaped coachwork, of curves that were drawn by eye and beaten by hand. The XK 140 was the evolution of the XK 120, the car that launched Jaguar onto the world stage at the London Motor Show in 1948. The 140 refined the design with larger bumpers, more chrome, improved brakes, and a more powerful engine. The 3.4-liter straight-six produced 190 horsepower in standard tune and over 200 in the special equipment version. The top speed was around 120 miles per hour, but the XK 140 is not about numbers, it is about proportion. The long bonnet, the sweeping wings, the twin exhausts, the wire wheels, the leaping Jaguar mascot on the bonnet. Every detail was designed to convey grace, pace, and space, the three words that William Lyons, the founder of Jaguar, used to describe his cars. The XK 140 was available as a roadster, a fixed-head coupe, and a drop-head coupe, and each version had its own distinct character. The roadster was the racer, the coupe was the gentleman's tourer, and the drop-head was the boulevard cruiser. The XK 140 also had a racing soul. The car competed at Le Mans, at the Mille Miglia, and at the Alpine Rally, and the victories gave Jaguar a credibility that money could not buy. The XK engine, designed by William Haynes and Walter Hassan during wartime firewatch shifts on the roof of the Jaguar factory, was so advanced that it remained in production for over 40 years, powering Jaguar saloons, sports cars, and even military vehicles. The engine that powered the XK 140 was the same engine that won Le Mans 3 times in the 1950s. The beauty of the XK 140 is inseparable from its engineering. The car is beautiful because every panel serves a purpose, every curve was tested in competition, and every detail was refined until it was perfect. Production is estimated at roughly 8,000 units across all variants. The XK 140 is less famous than the E-Type, less glamorous than the DB5, and less aggressive than the Cobra. But it is the car where every line, every curve, and every detail comes together in perfect harmony. It is the car that proves beauty does not need to shout, it only needs to be right. The British sports car industry of the 50s and 60s was unique in the world. No other country produced such a variety of beautiful, fast, and characterful cars in such a short period. The Italians had the styling, the Germans had the engineering, and the Americans had the power. But the British had the combination. The ability to build cars that were beautiful, fast, and affordable enough for ordinary people to buy. The cars on this list were not all expensive. The E-Type cost half the price of a Ferrari. The Lotus Elite was cheaper than a Porsche. The XK 140 was within reach of a successful professional. The British sports car was democratic beauty, and that is why it conquered the world. 5 cars, 5 visions of beauty. We started with the Jaguar XK, the car that stopped Enzo Ferrari in his tracks. Then the Aston Martin DB5, the most famous British car in the world. Next, the Lotus Elite, the fiberglass masterpiece that proved lightness was beauty. Then the AC Cobra, the British-American hybrid that defined raw aggression. And finally, the Jaguar XK 140, the car where every detail found its perfect place. The surprising thing about this list is that the most beautiful car did not come from the biggest factory, and it was not the most expensive. It came from a company that believed in proportion, restraint, and the power of getting every line exactly right. These cars were more than transport, they were sculptures, they were dreams made of aluminium and chrome, they were the proof that British engineering, at its best, could create objects of lasting beauty. Which of these 5 cars would you park in your garage for the rest of your life? XKE, DB5, Elite, Cobra, or XK 140? Write just the name in the comments. If you enjoyed this journey through British design, leave a like and subscribe, and tell us what we should take apart next. British motorcycles, British buses, British engines, or something else entirely.